Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of that thing we call Tilt Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, just like we are each and every single week. However, this week it is a little bit earlier than usual. We apologize for the late time change, but you know what? Sometimes you got to do double duty when you've got multiple podcasts and the sports world is big and there's a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, John Sapanaro back in Los Angeles, California. Matt Ibby Ibanez holding it down on the East Coast in New Jersey. Ibby, thank you for making this work an hour earlier. I don't know what our engagement is going to be like. I don't know what the live engagement is going to be like, but of course, everybody can watch this after the fact on our YouTube channel. They can listen starting tomorrow. And we've got to talk about the Mets because they're right in the throes of the season. So we had to find a way to do it today, but thank you for making it work.
I do what I can, John, because, you know, my co-host lives a faster life than I do. So clearly I have to accommodate, and I have no problem doing that. Luckily today it worked with the kids and stuff, but we're here to talk Mets. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of, again, a couple questions here and there, but I gotta say, I mean, I'm sure the chat will start filling up soon and they can hear this if they're watching it back. But last night, Jesus Christ, last night I made it a point, because I was doing a lot of running around last night and, taking care of the kids, feeding them, getting some stuff done right for work, things like that. So I'm watching the game's on. I'm watching the background. I'm seeing how things are going. And I'm just like, ooh, it's a rough game today. Like Josiah Gray's on. It's a rough game. Like, and then the Marte at bat happened. We'll talk about it. And then they didn't score. I'm like, this is just the night. And I made a point. I said, I am not fucking going on Twitter. I'm not going on. It's going to be stupid. It's going to be a waste of time. And then sure enough, dumb me, I go on late after the fact and I see my partner, my co-host is just
me. Hi,
crazy.
I'm the problem. It's me.
He's going absolutely insane on people. I'm seeing some of the comments, and look, the things that John was saying were not wrong. They were 100% correct. The things that others were saying were a little bit outlandish. We'll cover those things throughout the show, I'm sure, especially as I see some people start filling in the room. We'll start talking about those things. But yeah, it was a little much for me. So I made it a point to say goodbye, good night, not doing this tonight. I let my partner handle everything. So if you have any issues about things that were said, because of, I don't think anything was said on the show account, but in comparison to John's actual Twitter handle, please direct those complaints that way. I was not taking a part in that shit show that was last night.
Well, listen, Chris Ferraro, who's now joining us live for the first time in a few weeks, saying notifications worked, which is good. I know there's sometimes a glitch where like YouTube doesn't tell you that we're live until like 20 minutes after the fact. Patty in NYC is here saying hello. We got Baseball and BBQ
Stevie
saying
Mac in the building.
That cold in California? No, I'm just I'm really tired. I'm cozy. You're not going to want to know why I'm tired for some of you.
Careful, John.
You know why I'm tired? Stevie Mac saying, what's up, hooligans? And like Stevie Mac always says, hit that thumbs up button if you like what you are watching and listening to. Ibby, the reason why I'm tired is because last night at about 10 p.m., I got on a coast-to-coast flight from Atlanta back to California. And then when I got home,
coast to coast.
Yeah. So I flew cross country last night from Atlanta, Georgia to LA. It was a direct flight. It's about 4 hours and 40 minutes coming out west. And you do get 3 hours back, but I landed. It was about midnight. Then I had to go and walk through the airport and get my bags. And then I had to wait for my Uber. And then I had to take a 35-minute ride home. And then I couldn't get to bed right away because my body clock was all weird and I was a little overtired. So I didn't go to sleep until it was almost 3 a.m. West Coast time, which is 6 a.m. in my brain because I had been on the East Coast for 5 or 6 days.
Right.
So today I'm a little jet lagged. I don't want
to say it, but Excuse me. Jet lag does not exist. It's real. Okay. I don't want to hear it.
Listen, I'm still here. I don't know if it's going to be my best show, but I'm still here doing my job because that's what happens. As a matter of fact, as soon as we're done with this one, I have to do the Jets podcast which will start about a half hour after this podcast ends. So all I want to do is lay in bed today because I'm tired. But I'm going to go do that because that is the job. We'll see. We'll see if I have my best fastball. We'll see if I get any hits today. I'm not sure. I'll see if I make Josiah Gray look like the second coming of Tom Seaver. I'm not sure. But I can speak from experience that jet lag is a real thing.
God damn you, John. Jet lag does not exist. These guys are robots. I don't want to hear it. They're supposed to be out there doing everything they can to win these ball games. Every game counts. Now,
well, listen, I will say, even though,
yes,
I am jet lagged and I'm tired today, and I have to be at work at Monster Jam on Friday. I am, because Monster Jam is here in Los Angeles, I'm taking some of my friends tomorrow to Universal Studios. So I'd like to apologize in advance if on my day off, my activities at Universal Studios make my performance at work on Friday a little lackluster. But, it is my day off, so I'm going to do it.
Wait a minute. You do something outside of your actual job?
I do.
You enjoy your life?
I do. And
you
I actually I did. I stayed in places? Yeah, you're not gonna believe this. I stayed in Atlanta an extra couple days to go to restaurants and see some friends. I did.
To hell with you, Saponaro.
I know, I'm a monster. I'm just as bad as the Mets. I'm just as bad as the 3 Mets who went to the Ranger game. Obviously, that bit. I'm done. I'm done with the bit. But all of that is true, by the way. Everything I just said is true. I did just fly back from Atlanta. I am a little jet lagged. I do have 2 podcasts today. I am going to Universal tomorrow. I do have to be at work on Friday. And I think, in all seriousness, like the thing that bothered me the most, and Carlos joking around already in the comments. First he said, "Is Ibby referring to me?" And before
no
that,
comment.
He said, "Well, wait, so I'm not allowed to stay out till 4 a.m., but you get freedom on the starting time." Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, the thing that bothered me was, and it's not just Carlos, I don't want to single him out. A lot of people said, well,
it's a lot of people.
Yeah. If they're tired, don't go to the game. And if, it's been a full day, listen, these things happen sometimes. And I tweeted about this. Sometimes jet lag hits you immediately like a ton of bricks. Sometimes you get home and you're like, yeah, I'm just sitting on the couch. I'm good. And then you're like, oh, I have to go to work. I'm exhausted. And I just think that these players are people, not robots, like you said. And I think that you have to give them a little bit of leeway. Now, does that mean that the game was fun to watch? No, it was not fun to watch at all. I watched it
it stunk.
At the airport on my phone. And I was like, as I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? I don't want to watch them lose to the Nationals ever. The Nationals are one of the 5 worst teams in baseball, maybe bottom 3 at this point. Yeah. So I don't want to watch that. It was pathetic to watch that. But I don't think that you could sit there and blame them when they just came off of a 7-3 roadie. I know they lost the last 2 games, but they lost the last 2 games with guys. Honestly, they lost the last 3 games, if you include yesterday, with guys who weren't even supposed to be on this team. So I think you need to give them a little bit of leeway here. And the fact that when you fly cross country, you get tired. Sometimes your body clock is off. And I did say this to Carlos, again, not singling him out, but he and I did have the conversation on Twitter where, look, the Mets flew in. They got home 6 o'clock in the morning. They probably slept on the plane. Sleeping on the plane, whether it's a charter or a commercial flight, is not as comfortable as sleeping in your bed. They probably all went home, slept, and took a long nap for a few hours. Then they probably woke up and were wired. They couldn't really get to sleep. Their whole sleep schedule is off. That's what happens when you change time zones. It's not an instantaneous thing of like, ooh, I just got here and now I don't feel good. I went last year during the playoffs. I was in Australia, New Zealand, and Finland. And I went through all of those places and I was fine until I got home. I was okay in Australia. I was okay in New Zealand. I was okay in Finland. It's like 12 different time zones over that stretch. When I got back to Los Angeles, I could not move. I thought I was going to die, honestly, because my body had just been through too many places. So sometimes it doesn't hit you right away. That's all I'm trying to say. Give them a little bit of leeway. Today's a new day.
And it's also understand, like you can look at it because, again, we haven't played at the highest of levels, but you can still look at it from when you've played, when I've played, if anyone else has played. Like, there are times where no matter what, we love the game. We wear the game on our sleeves when we play the actual game itself. You always want to be out there, right? Sometimes, believe it or not, pro athlete or average Joe softball player, doesn't matter. Sometimes mentally you're like, yeah, I'm there. But physically, your body, it's just not there. And you can keep fighting and trying to push through it, and it's just not there. And you're not going to put out your best effort. There are times during a season, during a long season that is a marathon, not a sprint. There are times where you're just like, I said it last night. I was just like, And I said this in like the third or fourth inning. And I was just like, it's not going to happen tonight. You can just tell when you're watching a game when a team has it. And then sometimes you're surprised and they pull it out and they win a game. Like, oh, way to steal one. Great. They didn't have it last night. Okay. Does it suck that they lost now 3 in a row? Pack end 2 with the Giants. Now this one. Sure. Whatever. 14-10, all things considered. Look, when you look at
where it's like the third best record in baseball, by the way.
When you look at things on how they've gone to this point, with Max being out of the rotation for a short period of time now, when Verlander still hasn't been here, when you're throwing the likes of Jose Butto and you're throwing the likes of Joey Luchessi, who had a great game, but still not what you expected. Peterson's been up, a lot more down lately. McGill been up and down. Like, all things considered, 14-10, where you are, like, you should be kind of happy. I'm not saying don't be upset that you want to win certain games and you should say, look, they should beat the Nationals. Yes, I get that. But as always, there are times where you're going to have a couple of trip-ups in the season. Do I think this is going to cost them the season? No, I don't. If we come back to this game, after 162 and you're like, oh, we lost the division by 1 game. Remember that fucking game against the Nats on that Monday where they blamed jet lag and all this? It's like, no.
Nobody's going to remember it anyway.
No, they're not. You know why? Because there's going to be same thing that happened last year. There are games that you lost throughout the season that you shouldn't have lost. Multiple ones. There are games during the season that you won that you had no business winning. Like that Phillies game last year. They had no business winning that game, and they won the game. That's baseball. It's ups, it's downs, it's ebbs and flows. It happens. Just calm down.
That's
please.
A great point when you talk about games you should have won versus games. Like, the reason why nobody's going to remember this game, and look, all the games count the same, right? Every one of 162 counts the same. So yes, if we get to the end of the season and the Mets lose the division by 1 game, it's going to be, this game is as much of a culprit as any of the other losses. But the reason why I say nobody's going to remember it, and the reason why the old adage in baseball is that you don't win the pennant in April, is because there's going to be another one of these games, Ibby. There's going to be 2 more of them, 5 more of them, 10 more of them.
There will be.
There's going to be a lot more of them, and they're going to happen closer to the end of the season, and so they're going to get labeled as the culprit. Last year it was the game they should have won in Oakland, despite the fact that they took 2 out of 3 from Oakland, right? It's, if they would have swept Oakland before they played the Braves, none of this would have happened.
If the DeGrom doesn't get ripped that game, right. Yeah.
So, there's always going to be a game to point to. I do want to jump back in the comments really quick. Chris Ferraro said, okay, but important question, John. Did you flip off the Braves stadium like I asked? I didn't, because the Braves don't actually play in Atlanta. They play in Cobb County, and I didn't even go anywhere near the stadium. So, that's just how it is. I didn't go anywhere near it. I didn't even look at it. I didn't see it. And I was all over. I was in Hampton, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, Buckhead, and I didn't even see the stadium. I don't know where it is. It might not even be in the state of Georgia. I'm not 100%.
Your ass should have been stuck on that Monster Jam track the entire time.
Okay, so here's the comment from Carlos I want to bring up.
Okay.
Honest question. Are we starting to settle again? Are we making excuses for every time something doesn't go as expected? Honest question, not being a smartass. Here's my card, by the way. No, so Ibby, I don't know. I think I'll let you attack this first. I just want to say that I think since we've started this show, both of us, but I'm only going to speak for myself because I'll let you take it.
Sure.
I've been very consistent on not panicking over these games. I've been very consistent on a difference between wanting them to win every game and there's a difference between wanting them to win every game and expecting them to win every game. I want the Mets to win every time I turn on the television, but I understand that they're not. I think the comparison I made last time was, I expect to be funny every single time I hit the stage, but I understand that sometimes I'm not going to have a good set and I'm going to bomb, and that's just how it goes. Yeah. You have to kind of brace for that because it's going to happen regardless. The Mets are going to have stinkers. So It's not about, for me, it's not about making excuses. For me, it's identifying reasons. You want to take the jet lag and the West Coast trip off the table? Let's look at the fact that Jose Butto hasn't pitched in 9 days. Jose Butto had to deal with all kinds of roster manipulation to even get back up here. They had to put a guy on the phantom IL stint. They're also going up against a guy who I know that they've handled before in the past in Josiah Gray, but Josiah Gray's got a good arm. Josiah Gray was basically the centerpiece for the Max Scherzer, Trey Turner deal, and he's going up against Jose Butto.
Yeah.
So you want to find a different reason to say why the Mets didn't win? It's because they faced a better pitcher, and the pitcher that they're throwing out there is not that good.
Yeah, when I
jet lag.
Right. I don't think it's settling. I don't think it's making excuses. It's more so like you said, it's identifying and looking at what is going on. Why are these things happening? I don't say these things because they make it seem like it's this long spread. Like, why did this happen? Okay. I think it's ridiculous that we have to like literally break down this game, but why did this happen? Okay. And you laid it out right there. It's like you have things that have gone on with this team. Okay. The fact that they went on the West Coast and they went 7-3 and they come home and they lay an egg. That's baseball. All right. You're not going to look, but I look at it like this. If everyone's going to have a meltdown, like they always do on Mets Twitter, when it comes to a loss, and there were 50 something meltdowns last year because they had a great year, but a meltdown after everyone nonetheless. My retort to this question is, do we have to nitpick and find something every single time they lose a game? Is that what we're doing? And trying to find out, why did they do, like, if we're going to nitpick every single thing, then basically we're trying to find a way as to why they lost all of these games. Like, you're not going to win every game. It doesn't work that way. It's not baseball. Okay. Sometimes you just get outdone on a given day. The Mets got beat yesterday. It's as simple as that. That's it.
And look, baseball and BBQ makes a good point. Butto was not good, 6 walks, but only gave up 2 runs. The offense was bad. Listen, he was also pulled before the end of the 5th inning. He was going to give up more runs than that. Yacobonis saved him. And then also Yacobonis got bit. And that brings me to my next point. In the next inning, Yacobonis got bit. Because I saw somebody on Twitter last night say, no one's going to talk about how Luis Guillorme was at the Ranger game last night drinking on camera and then made an error to cost them the game. Somebody tweeted that. Somebody tweeted that. Like saying that he's still drunk 24 hours later. He's still hungover 24 hours later. First of all, he was probably never even drunk. Right? Just because he was having a sip of beer on camera doesn't mean he was drunk. Okay. Right. Second of all, if he was, he's still not drunk. What about when he makes the diving play, the sliding play to his left and throws the guy out? No, irrelevant. He's a bum because he broke the wrong way. Now, did it look bad? Yeah, it looked bad. You saw the look on Luis's face. It looked like he was trying to get a jump on a double play and broke where he thought the ball was going to go, and the ball went the other way. Did it look bad? Yeah, it looked bad. It looked dumb. It is what it is. I just don't think that everything, again, like, I'm not going to open up a federal case every single time the Mets lose a game. I don't think that's in the spirit of what we're talking about. I'm going to jump back into the comments. Carlos is sort of, again, I'm not trying to single him out, but he's sort of being the counterpoint, to this. It's not a meltdown after every loss. That's not fair. It's the fact that this is a continuation of September, all of it. Players' inconsistency and Buck thinking he's smarter than everyone. I don't see that. If you're telling me that player inconsistency from last season is going to lead to 101 wins and a playoff berth, and the fact that if the Braves didn't have one of the best seasons of all time, the Mets would have won that division going away. How often does a team win over 100 games and not win the division in the history of Major League Baseball? Yeah, I will sign for last year every single time. I just want to be in a position to make a run in the playoffs. That's what baseball is to me, Ibby. That's all it is to me now. And I'm not.
Sorry to cut you off, but I read that and I don't agree with it, mainly because by saying it's a continuation of September, well, this team in September didn't do a 7-3 road trip on the West Coast. They did they stunk in September. They go 7-3 here, and you come back and you lose a game against the Nats, and everyone starts having a meltdown because that's what Twitter was last night. It was a joke. So my question there is, this team, as it was in September, wouldn't have done what this team just did on the West Coast. It wouldn't have, because they were dead in September. They played dead in September. This team is fighting through some issues that they have,
some major
due
ones,
to circumstance. Exactly. You're not even at the full strength of where you were, what you thought you were going to be once you put this entire team together. You're not there. And guess what? You might not ever be there, so you're going to keep on fighting that way. But this team just went 7-3 on the West Coast, and we laid an egg on a Monday. I don't know why is this a huge deal? I don't get it. I really don't.
I don't understand. And again, it's not us. Look, there are really great Mets content creators out there. We've had them on the show. We're friends with them. We collaborate with them. So this is not a slight on any of those people at all. I need to say that explicitly. But Ibby, some of those folks have an allegiance to the team, to the, and I mean like a partnership, a financial obligation or whatever.
Right.
They have an allegiance to SNY or to the Mets. We don't. So I'm not making excuses. I can say whatever I want about the Mets. No one can tell me I can't. Right. So I'm not sitting here. Buck Showalter's not my dad. He's not my friend. I've never met him. I probably never will. So you can know with certainty that there is no reason. Me and Ibby have no motivation to make an excuse for the Mets. And again, I'm not saying that other people do. I'm just saying that we definitely
in general,
don't.
People could question that. What the point you're making is, people could question team or shows that do have an affiliation. So if they are coming across a little bit softer on something, one could say, "Oh, it's because you're shilling for SNY, or you're shilling because you're the Mets chosen podcast."
You've got to have Billy Epler on the podcast, so you can't take him to task. Or this guy knows, he's a former player and he's friends with Buck Showalter. He used to pitch for him, and John just took a DNA test. Buck is 100% not the father. Yeah,
not the father.
I wish. I kind of wish. It'd be cool. It'd be pretty cool. My dad's fine. Buck Showalter seems like a pretty good guy. So no, I just we have no obligation. Right. We have no impetus to sit here and go, "Oh man, Buck's doing the best he can, and the Mets are doing the best." When we say that, it's because that's what we feel. Now, have the Mets been good? Yes. Have the Mets been great? No. Have the Mets been up and down? Sure. Yeah. Have the Mets turned in some great baseball and some stink baseball and kind of not a lot in between? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the Mets have either been really good or really bad, kind of. They haven't really put out too many efforts where you'd go, "Oh, wow, you know what? The Mets really fought through this one." You know what I mean? We haven't really seen that yet. And so, again, if you want to be frustrated, be frustrated. I just think for your own sanity, you can't live and die by all of these moments. Carlos is saying, I'm not saying you guys are, it's just everyone. And that was, that's not me, again, directing it at Carlos. That's me just, the things that he was saying, the things Carlos is saying made me think of that. It made me just kind of pop. I wasn't saying that he was accusing us. It's just that we have there's nothing else. We do this purely because we love doing it. Because we love the debate. We love the Mets. We love talking to all of you guys. We love talking to each other about it. That's why we're doing it. We have no allegiance to anybody else. I do want to bring this up. I think we should just turn the page on this game now. Yeah. Because there's going to be another game in a couple hours, and it just is what it is. And I think the more we feed into it, the longer the conversation goes. This is an interesting one. I wasn't going to go here, but Baseball and BBQ brings up a good point. Can I get your guys' opinion on Nimmo in the in-game interview? I am against interviewing players on the field. Why can't ESPN interview Nimmo in the dugout? We saw Conforto drop an easy fly ball and then followed it up by, "Can you imagine if that happened to Nimmo during the interview?" Nimmo said that he was nervous about being mic'd up and having to play in the field at the same time. Now, obviously, he handled it fine, but Ibby, that would be my biggest concern. I've never played at the professional level, but I don't like to talk to people. I played in high school. I play softball now my whole life, baseball or softball. I don't like to talk when the ball's hit. You know what I mean?
No, you want to be able to focus. They're asking me who's going to play in the movie that it's based off of your life? Or who? I'm sitting there who fucking cares about this? But I mean, the only thing I liked about the interview was the fact that we got to see like Brandon Nimmo actually being like what we all picture Brandon Nimmo to be, just be like, gosh darn. Like saying things like that. Like that was cool in a sense, but I don't need it. I mean, the best part of those interviews the entire time was basically when jackass Buster Olney goes up to Buck Showalter, and Buck was just like, I'm not going to tell you this. Like, get away from me. And then it was over. And then it was basically like, screw you. I'm done with you. And then Buster kind of like laughed off and just walked away. Then it was done. Like, that was the best part of all those things. I get what they're trying to do with all of that. I think it'll be like, I get you're trying to make it more fun. Like, I remember it was last year where they mic'd up Lindor and he's playing shortstop. Like, that's a hot look. It's a big position on the field. You get a lot of action. Something's hitting the hole, wherever it may be. Like in the alpha, maybe you have a little bit of that, like a smidge of extra time, but not really. It's still professionals you're playing. But I get what they're trying to do, make it a little bit more interesting. But at the same time, I the idea of it happening to a Met, because again, we know how things happen when it comes to the Mets and the discourse that follows. If Brandon Nimmo's talking about, I want Kevin Costner to play me in a movie, and a ball hits the gap and he drops the ball, forget about it. You're going to see it nonstop on blooper reels moving forward.
Yeah, everybody, this is why I brought it up, because I figured people would have a ton of opinions about it. Shout out to Baseball and BBQ for bringing it up. James Dowling just saying, not a fan of interviews during the game. Shay saying, in spring training, it's fun, but during games that matter, I don't like the distraction value of it. James following it up by saying, just let them play and focus on that. Carlos then saying, I only like the in-game interview when it's the other team that's being interviewed.
And to continue the conversation a little bit, like interviews in general, during a baseball game, like whether we're talking interviewing someone that's on the diamond like ESPN does, or even I love Gary, Keith, and Ron. We all do. But sometimes, even when it's a two-man booth and they have someone else that they bring in for an interview, some of those, they don't really land that well. I don't like those either. I like when you're telling me your stories and you intertwine it within the game. But when you bring somebody else in that might not be that baseball centric, or at least caught up to being baseball centric for that game or in that moment, that makes those things a lot more difficult to swallow and listen to as well. So I'm really not big on interviews in general during the game.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't really like it either. And I do like when players are mic'd up. That's different to me.
That's different.
Because if you can pull up like, hey, in the last half inning, let's listen to Brandon Nimmo. And, like somebody hits a ball and he's like, gosh darn it. Or, I think when Lindor was mic'd up at shortstop, there was a moment where like he dove for a ball and he's like, man, I don't know how I missed that. You know what I mean? It was just like, there was like these little things like that is interesting to me. It's like the NFL does that. They'll release it like after the season, all those packages of like players who were mic'd up throughout the season. Right. I don't mind if a guy's mic'd up. I don't want to distract them during the game. I think it's dumb. I also think it's hard. Okay, so one of the reasons why, this is totally a tangent, but I just remember watching a little documentary video about this. One of the reasons why you're not really supposed to talk on the phone and drive is not necessarily because your hands are distracted, or in some cases now with modern technology where you're texting, you're looking down, right? Mm-hmm. The talking on the phone thing is if you're answering complex questions, you are distracted from the task at hand. Right. So if you're just having a nonsense conversation about the Mets, whatever. But if you're like, hey, John, so, if you had one dream in life and you wanted, a genie could make it happen tomorrow, what would it be? And I'm driving, like that's a complicated question to try to ask. And I feel like that's the questions that they ask them on the field. And so that's why I think it's kind of dumb. I don't like it. Stevie Mac made a really great point. I'm waiting until they ask an F, marry, kill question to one of the mic'd up players. The real questions we want answered. That's good. You start doing that.
That's a good one. Yeah.
You start doing that, I'm good. What about, I think it was Liam Hendricks, by the way, who's now cancer-free. So congratulations to Liam Hendricks. But Liam Hendricks, I think, was mic'd up in the All-Star game, right?
Oh, he's like, it's broke. It's not working.
He was dropping F-bombs the whole time because he's Australian and that's what he does. Yeah. He's like, fuck this. Again, you want to do it in an All-Star game? Like, I don't care if a guy drops a ball in the All-Star game. Mic up the position players pitching when down 10 runs. Yes, that's the kind of thing I will go for all of that. But I do think it's weird when you mic up a player during the game and start to ask them complex questions about their lives and all this stuff. Carlos saying we have to mic up Hollywood John during a cross-country flight, but during the day, the red eye might be an R rating. Basically, anytime I go on these
based off of his Twitter rants last night, it was R rated.
Yeah, when I went to Australia and New Zealand and stuff last year, I kept doing like every morning I would wake up and do like a little live video. Maybe I'll start doing that again. Maybe next time I have a cross-country trip or a red eye, I'll do a live video. But anyway, yeah, I just think that I think that it's a weird thing to do, and I don't think it adds anything to baseball. I agree with you 100% when they bring in guys in the booth. Gary, Keith, and Ron are great. I don't want to upset the dynamic with some other people in there. They had what's his name on the phone the other day. A week ago.
Yeah.
I tweeted out, I was like, honestly, this is a miss. No disrespect to the 69 Mets, but like, this is a bad idea. And it's like, he's not even there. He's on the phone. You're calling him from the phone, on the phone. We didn't even get one, like, that's a 2-2 pitch. Like, nothing.
Right.
Just like watching it and they're having like a side conversation. It's like watching baseball at a bar with the sound off and I'm just talking to you about something else. And again, we've had the privilege and the honor, and again, not dumping on anybody. We've had the privilege and the honor on this show to interview a lot of people, whether it's former players, whether it's people who have been connected to baseball that aren't necessarily connected to baseball now and things like that. And, sometimes they'll say like, hey, I'm not super, like, I don't really follow the Mets right now, or I don't follow, baseball the way that I used to, or I only, after I retired, I took 10 years away from baseball. I'm only just now getting back into it. And it's like, sometimes when you bring in guys like that on an interview, that's what you wind up with. Not everything is like, oh my God, this is Joey Lucchesi's entire family after he just pitched the best game of his life.
Right.
Great. I don't want to hear from guys during games. So, I just think that there's a little bit of sometimes overproduced there.
The only person I need in the booth with Gary, Keith, and Ron is Jerry Seinfeld. Other than that, I'm okay. Really, when it comes to anybody else.
I totally agree. Chris saying Mike up Keith Hernandez flying without the right socks on when his feet are cold.
That was funny last night. That was good.
Like, what kind of socks does he need? That is absolutely fantastic. Okay, look, we're at the 30-minute mark. Let's head into the break. We'll come back. We've got plenty of actual baseball to talk about, but I thought that was a great kind of palate cleanser conversation. So let's dart away for a second. Everybody's watching this for the first time. I don't think there's anybody from what I can tell, but it's just a 10-second ad spot. We will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibby, Ibanez. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. Best way to interact with the show live is on YouTube, where your comments, your questions, your concerns. Today, your hilarious jokes. There's a lot of them. I gotta be honest. They all come in real time. Baseball and BBQ. Mr. Met keeps his mouth shut.
I got one. I couldn't stop laughing the other day where this guy, my partner over here, this guy just completely buried somebody. I think he tried to like make a joke. It was a bad joke, but John made it a point to be like, listen, buddy, you didn't, your pitch, the way you went about the joke was terrible. The punchline was awful. You took too long. Basically, pack it up, never tell a joke again. And I read that, I was like, Jesus Christ, he just completely shit on the guy. And then everyone else is like liking John's comment, like, this guy is just quit Twitter, buddy. Just,
he was a Yankee. He was a Yankee fan. Who
I couldn't stop laughing at it though.
For everybody, I mean, most of the people in here follow me and follow you and follow the show. But if you missed it, he was a Yankee fan. Took a picture of a Max Scherzer jersey, and then like did this like verbal gymnastics to get to the worst punchline I've ever heard. Like, if you're gonna troll. You know what I mean? Be good at it. And he was like, I went into Dick's the other day, and they thought I was stealing a Max Scherzer jersey because my hands were sticky when I touched it and it got stuck to me and I walked out of the store. I was like, oh my God, it's the worst joke ever. Don't you have any idea how to set up punchline? What are you doing? Now, granted, I'm a professional, but I'm irked. I get irked. So I went to, this is a total sidebar, but I went to, I was in one of my like grammar school, elementary school, lifelong best friends. I was in his wedding a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of people who were at that wedding. We're all very, very, very close. Some of us have known each other since we're 5, some of us from high school, some of us from college. But at this point, it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting there, and he has 2 brothers. And so both of his brothers were his best men, and both of his brothers gave speeches. Now, I have a real problem with wedding speeches because I'm a professional speaker. So obviously, but like, I understand that not everybody is, and people get forced into this and whatever. But I was sitting there and I was just like, oh my God.
Rough.
Just stop trying to make jokes. Just
the worst.
Just speak from the heart.
Yes.
Just be honest. And if something funny happens, and maybe if you want to get one joke in right out of the way, and then like, if people laugh, you could go with it. If people don't laugh, you could just kind of move on, and then you get to the serious stuff and be done. I was sitting there and I was just like, and all my other friends now at the table with us are just sitting there just cracking up at me because they're like, how painful is this for you? And I'm like, you're fucking watching it on my face. So it was part of the problem that he was a Yankee fan that was trying to dump on Scherzer for no reason. And it was like, look, I can admit a funny joke when I see a funny joke. If it was a good one, I'd go with it. But it was not a good one. It was not a good one, and I just got annoyed, and I just had to be out.
On the topic of wedding speeches, now that you bring that up, I was one of the best men for my cousin at his, and there's one thing I can say that makes me proud because of what you just said, like go from the heart, don't try to be too funny. When I wrote my speech, I did put a couple of jokes in that I thought would hit, and that I even put like in my thing as I was typing them, I was just like, pause for laughter, and I did pause and I did get those laughters, so I was happy with that. But the best part about it was his brother went first because I knew his brother was going to rip him. It was going to be like a roast, so I said, you go first, you bring him completely down, I'll go from the heart, I'll bring it back up. It'll be great. We fucking killed it. It was fantastic. So you would have liked those speeches. You would have liked those.
I would have. I just think, listen, again, I know that I have a biased perspective, but when you speak professionally, you tell jokes professionally for 10 years, you can just you don't want to sit through bad comedy. Like I love improv comedy. There's nothing better than good improv comedy. There's nothing worse than bad improv comedy. So and I'll be the first one. Like I've been sitting in the back of comedy clubs. Friends of mine have been on, and I'm like, it's not his night. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like and I'm sure people have done it to me. I'm not above that, but nah.
Right.
Chris saying, hey, how about the girls doing the discussion about the teams in the same city should have the same name?
I did see that.
I did retweet it saying that this is the dumbest. It is the absolute dumbest conversation in the history of sports.
They should be New England. That's what they should be.
I don't even
same name.
I don't even understand. Like, do they have any idea why that stuff is what it is? Like, it seemed as though they had no clue. Like, the reason why New England Patriots are the New England Patriots is because the NFL is a massive organization, and they wanted a team that would not just represent Boston or represent Massachusetts. They wanted to have it be a catch-all for Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, the entire surrounding area, because none of those other states are ever going to get a professional football team.
Correct.
It's the same reason why they're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and not the Tampa Buccaneers, because Tampa Bay is the larger geographical area. Like, there's a reason why we still call them the New York Jets and the New York Giants, despite the fact that they play in New Jersey.
Right.
And so just that alone is you literally couldn't do it.
Right. But this is exactly why we're talking about it. Maybe everyone in the chat saw, maybe they did it, but then they're going to see, let me check John's retweets, or let me see if I can find this clip. Then they're going to click it. Then they're going to get the engagement like this.
I know.
It's all a game. It's all about creating and getting those eyes. It could be the dumbest of things. It could be the smartest of things. It doesn't matter. It's all about just trying to get that engagement. But it's frustrating because, yes, a lot of times you do have to sift through a lot of bullshit.
Listen, I'll move on after this, but I will say, I said it on Twitter and I'm saying it now. It is not because they're women, by the way. It was all women in that clip. I think everybody who knows me knows that that's not the point I was trying to make. I've worked with plenty of fantastic women in sports. One of my co-hosts on the Jets show is an unbelievable woman in sports. At Monster Jam, I work with so many women in motorsports. We've had Lauren Rubinson on the show, Danielle Sepulveda. There are so many wonderful women in sports, and there are plenty of idiot dudes in sports too. Skip Bayless, Brandon Tierney, Tiki Barber. The list goes on and on. Sal Licata.
I don't say those names. We
No,
don't
I'm going to
say
say
those names.
and now we move on. I just wanted to get that out there because, sometimes you say something and it gets retweeted and then it's a problem. Then I get canceled. I don't want to get canceled. Somebody who should get canceled, though, in my opinion, is David Peterson. I think David Peterson needs to get sent down to the minor leagues as soon as it is possible, which probably will not be until Verlander comes back. But I think as this rotation starts to take shape, I think just David Peterson is clearly the odd man out.
Yeah, clearly we were both pumped up about our.
That takes Buto off the table, by the way, because he's only filling in for Max.
Correct. We were clearly pumped up the other day as Pete crushed his 10th homer, and we're looking back on our predictions on the show, and we put him back up because we were feeling good. Look, I feel good about my Pete prediction. My David Peterson prediction, not so much. But look, I'll wear it. I thought he would do a lot better. John Mincone on Twitter, anyone who follows him, mentioned during the spring, and he just he brought it up again recently, basically saying what happened to his arm motion, what happened to his arm slot, the things that he corrected in the spring when he was thriving have gone away. He's fallen back into old habits, and you're seeing the production that he's putting out, and it's not that good. And I agree with you. Like right now, he's not meant to be in this rotation. The only reason he's in it is because of circumstance, because of the injuries. Once everyone gets back and things get rolling, he probably shouldn't be in this rotation because, look, if you're going to go out there and like I like looking deeper into numbers, and I like looking at the the swinging strike rate and the chasing rate and things like that. And look, the guy's still getting 6, 7, 8 strikeouts here and there, but it doesn't help. I as much as I like those numbers, it doesn't help when you're giving up 5, 6 runs. It does it doesn't equate. Like if you're putting up the chase rate numbers, you got to put up zeros as well. Like they have to coincide. You can't have it where, I struck out 8 guys, but you gave up 6 runs, like, and you walk 3 on top of that. Like it doesn't help. So right now he doesn't have it. Maybe he figures something out along the way before everyone gets healthy. I'm not too confident at the moment based off of what I've seen. But you're right. Like as things stand right now, once everyone gets back, I think he's the odd man out.
Yeah, Chris Ferraro saying, tiny part of me doesn't even want to go on Friday night because Peterson is pitching and I live a few states away. That's fair.
I don't blame you.
Especially
I don't blame you.
Especially if going to a game requires all this travel to do it, right? Like, like there's something there's times when it's worth it. There's times when it isn't. And Peterson, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I'm always the kind of person, when I go to the game, I turn on the game. If I can't watch the game, I want the Mets to win every night. But sometimes you have to look at the scope of what you're actually seeing and say, hey, you know what? I don't know, man. Peterson hasn't been good for a month. Do I really want to drive all the way? I don't know what state Chris lives in, but if he lives in Pennsylvania, do I want to drive all the way? Connecticut, maybe? Yeah. But either way.
I think you had a Connecticut joke one time. I didn't like it.
Oh, I think so. Was that when I was talking shit on Danbury?
Yeah.
I think so. That's fair. But if you live in Connecticut, my dad lives in Connecticut, and my dad isn't going to drive into Queens to go to Citi Field. Massachusetts. Okay. Yeah. That's even that. I mean, that's far. That's far to go see a game. So I totally get it. And then he did say, he followed it up by saying, it's just not going to happen here. I'm fairly convinced. And he said that Peterson is now like Matz and Nice back in the day. And
saw a lot of that on Twitter too. Yeah. Hard to disagree.
He's the kind of guy, and I've said this when he was good, when he was bad. I've said this over Peterson's career so far with the Mets. I don't dislike Peterson, but he does remind me, and I think there's a similarity because they're lefties, right? But
it's an easy comp.
But beyond the easy comp, I think there are comps. Like Peterson, Matz, and Nice are all lefties with really live arms and good breaking stuff who should be better than they are. It goes beyond which hand they pitch with, similar velocity profiles, good breaking balls. And then there's just something missing that prevents them from actually being very good. And so for me, look, I'm not saying I'm not ready to say his days are over.
No,
I'm not ready to say he's off the team, but I think
especially where the pitching is, like you can't know.
Well, he's going to be out of this rotation as soon as someone else is ready to come back. And correct. I think, is it Patty? Yes, Patty in NYC said, what about Buto? I mentioned Buto before. Buto's going to be down when Max comes back. And then I think you're going to see when Verlander comes back, you're going to see Peterson out. I think it's going to be Max, Verlander, Senga, Tyler McGill, and Joey Luchessi. That's what I think we're going to see for a little while. Yeah. And look, is Joey Luchessi as good as what he did the other night? Probably not.
Probably not.
But if he's pitching like that, if he does anything that even approaches that, you can't take him out of the rotation. And like I said last week, with Luchessi, he's going to be on an innings count. He's going to be on how much can this guy give you. So you want him to give you the quality stuff when he can give it to the major league team in a meaningful way. In other words, in September, he ain't going to be able to pitch 7 innings. Right. So get 7 innings out of him now, and then maybe Carrasco comes back as healthy. Maybe Quintana's healthy. Maybe the Mets make a deal for an arm. Right now, you got to put the 5 best starting pitchers you have out there. Peterson is not one. And to me, I know it's just been one start, but Luchessi is one if you have to make a pick between the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just bringing up Joey Luchessi, I'm so upset with myself because my goddamn allergies took over my body during that start. And I'm watching the game and I can barely see, like my eyes are just so red and itchy. I'm like, I'm dying over here. I can't, medicine's not working. And I think it was like the 4th, maybe the 5th. I can't even remember. I was so out of it. And then I finally like popped the Benadryl. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. And then I pass out. And then I wake up and I see all this stuff. Like everyone's like praising Joey Lucas. Like, what the hell did I miss? I see the stat line. I put out a tweet about how I passed out because of the allergies. John's telling me, oh, you missed prime Cherv. I'm like, God damn it.
You did.
But I'm happy that he came back from that injury and thrived. He clearly had something with this team when he first came up because everyone was doing the Cherv and all that fun stuff. Doing all the fun stuff. So seeing him being able to come back and have that kind of start not only is great for him, but it was great for the team. And hopefully he can continue something along those lines. I don't think he's going to be that lights out every start moving forward. We'll all hope that he is, but if he can provide something better than what David Peterson has been providing to this point, is a positive.
Ibby's face was in fuego due to allergies.
It was.
That's perfect. James Rube joining the chat saying, let's go Mets. Get to see Joey pitch Thursday live. That'll be
cool.
Love
it, Rube. Love it. Have a blast.
We've got Joey Fuego had me hyped Friday, but also see it in the next several starts. Yeah, I know it's just it's one sample size. For me, this is more about Peterson's inability than necessarily anything that Joey Lucchesi has shown, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Peterson has been so down bad now for so many starts. Yeah, if Lucchesi comes out tonight, is it tonight? No, Senga tonight, Lucchesi Thursday. If Lucchesi gets shelled on Thursday, that's obviously going to be like, ugh, now what do we do? But it's still one great outing, one bad outing. Whereas with Peterson, he's basically been bad all season.
He's been bad, yeah.
And so it's like, he hasn't been good since spring training, like you said. So, let's go back to that and look at the entire body of work thus far. That, for me, is more about it. This one from Carlos, I'm not sure. John, please don't jinx this rotation, bro. Remember, common sense doesn't exist with Buck. What does that mean? What does that mean, Carlos? I don't know. How did I jinx them? I just said what I would do with the rotation. I think it's Max Verlander, Senga, Lucchesi, and McGill. That's what I think they have to go to war with for now. I don't think that's jinxing them. It's just what I think that they should do.
Look, if we're going to talk, to appease Carlos here, if we're going to talk about the downfalls of this season in terms of what Buck has done right versus what he's done wrong, I think we can all agree that there's been a lot of questionable moves when it's come to the bullpen. I think that's true. You've mentioned it before. I've brought up a couple things as well where some things worked out when they were first decided. You're like, ooh, really? Like you're going to go to Yacobonis in this spot?
Yeah, sure.
He the first time coming back, like this spot, this doesn't make sense to me. Or knowing that you're bringing someone in, but you have Robertson and Ottavino available when you're going to say it's a long season, but you have an off day the next day. It's like certain things, yes, I can agree with that. There are times where you could say his bullpen management has been questionable. Will that bite us when it matters most moving forward on a push for October, in October? Maybe. We'll see. But that's the only thing I can really truly question beyond, in terms of what he's done wrong. Because lately, I am happy because Brett Beatty has been playing more. Francisco Alvarez has been getting a little more run here and there.
Neither one of them are playing today, so
All right, so, but the offense is still a little bit struggling on both ends for them. Alvarez more so than Beatty. Beatty had a couple hits the other night, but at least they're getting a little bit more rope, which is a good thing and the right thing.
Also, in fairness, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this because I want to see it kind of go a little bit further, but Beatty's approach has overall been better than Alvarez's approach thus far.
I agree.
Beatty is hitting to a little bit of hard luck. He's hit a few balls on the screws.
Hit the ball hard.
Right at outfielders. One of the dudes, I think it was the Tyro Estrada, made a diving play on a ball that was going to be a base hit for Beatty. Beatty looks settled in like a major leaguer. Alvarez looks like he's still adjusting to being a major leaguer. That would adjusting.
Be his one at bat last night was really rough. I think it was basically like uno dos adios. It was 3 pitches. It was like a curveball on the outside. He struck out, a flailing swing. It's like he's not there. He's still struggling, and I get it, but he's not there yet.
You know what's crazy to me about Alvarez is that every time I catch an Alvarez at bat, I feel like he swings at I know this hasn't happened every time, but I feel like so much he swung at the first pitch and hit like a 45-foot dribbler. Just stay in the at bat. I don't know if he's now he's worried about striking out because he struck out a lot. So now he's being overly aggressive, but he's
or just jumping on any fastball.
He's mishitting everything and just hitting the ball off the inside of the bat, hit 45 feet to the third baseman, getting thrown out. He's not even giving himself a chance to have competitive at bats. Now, to your point, I don't want to see him 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, but I'd rather see him work a 2-2 count and strike out than, pop up on the first pitch or, hit a ground ball weakly on the first pitch. That's not the move. And I think he needs to put himself in a position to have more competitive at bats. I will say, though, just real quick, I do think Buck has been better than he's been bad. I think there's been a couple things. I also disagree with the Jeff McNeil stuff. I'm going to die on this hill until the Mets get another bat. I think Jeff McNeil should hit behind Pete or in front of Pete every single day. Period. I know there was a little bit of a lull where Jeff wasn't hitting. Now Jeff is hitting. He also has a 470 on base percentage because why not just add that to your fucking bag of tricks? I just think that when you have an offense that's inconsistent, Daniel Vogelback's OPS is real low now. He's got 1 home run. He's got no extra base hits outside of that, maybe 2 doubles. I think I don't think Mark Canha and Daniel Vogelback are it. Now, if you tell me in a month it's going to be Brett Beatty, and then Jeff can go back to being a Swiss Army knife in the lineup, fine. But right now, I don't think anybody's ready to have it be Brett Beatty. So I want to see it be Jeff McNeil. And so that's another thing I disagree with, just so that Carlos knows that I'm not a Buck apologist, even though I do like Buck Showalter. And remember, I wanted Matt Quatraro. Yes, I was wrong. I was so fucking wrong. But I came on this show, and I said, Ibby, who
and to Danielle, that was the Danielle show. Yeah,
I said, who would be a good manager for this team? Matt Quatraro, coming from the Rays. I don't know anything else about him, but he's but it's the Rays. He's coming from the Rays, and he's 29 years old somehow. So let him be the manager. That's what I thought, and I was wrong. So there you go.
But back to Alvarez just for a quick second. I don't like some of the approaches that I'm seeing when it comes to that's your fucking.
I'm sorry. That's so funny. Oh, you guys are killing me in the comments today. I don't know if I'm jet lagged or you guys are just super funny this week, but it's just money good.
But when back to Alvarez real quick. Some of the at bats, I trust the bat. I know some people are complaining about it or whatever, but I still trust the bat. I still trust the profile. I think he's going to be fine. I'm very happy with what he's been doing behind the plate. His framing, I think he was in the 80th percentile, which is almost double, I believe, of what Tomas Nido has been doing to this point. So it's I get why he's not catching Senga. I'm not shocked by him not playing tonight. So that doesn't really alarm me too much.
I don't think he's ever caught Senga, even.
I don't think he has. And if that's we've talked about that. We've said, look, if he's catching everyone but Senga, I think that's kind of what it should be at the moment. But his framing's there. He's looking more and more confident behind the plate, catching. That was always the biggest thing. Like if that's your biggest issue with a player, and that's always been the biggest knock on him, can he play defensively at this next level? If he can prove, and he has been to this point, if he can continue improving himself behind the plate, you trust the profile and you say, this guy is going to figure it out at the plate. He will. He'll figure it out one way or another. What's the more important thing at the moment? Since they are batting him 8th, 9th in the lineup, can he catch? Can he prove that he can be a player up here and be an everyday catcher or catch 5 out of 7 games a week? Because we know the bat can play. And so far, he's doing that.
Yeah, Chris Ferraro saying, sadly, I have to catch the rest of the podcast on audio, have to run errands with the Boo before the Mets game and the Bruins game for her. And then Patty in NYC also has to dip out early because she is commuting. We'll say that next week we'll be back in our regular slot, which is 5:30. Just today, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of just trying to make it. I also have a softball game tonight. Also, my co-host on the Jets pod has a softball game tonight that's running right up against us recording. So
blame Aaron Rodgers, guys. Blame Aaron Rodgers, that jerk.
That's the sweet. I woke up this morning. Okay, I know this is not a Jets podcast, but I'm just going to say this because, at this point, you and I are friends enough where I can say this to you. I woke up this morning, but it's like, early afternoon on the East Coast. And I opened up Twitter, and the first thing I saw was Aaron Rodgers getting out of a car at One Jets Drive with a Jets hoodie on. And I thought I was going to pass out. I was like the coolest. I was never in doubt that this was going to happen. I thought he was going to be on the team the whole time. But when I finally saw him wearing a Jets something, I was like,
believe me, you're not. I got my buddies, Mike and my cousin Chris. Like I've been in the group chat all morning. They're sending videos of this guy just literally walking through One Jets Drive. They're losing their shit because every time he daps someone up, it was like the perfect clap on every single one. They're like breaking it down. Like, I get it. I understand.
Must be healthy.
Like you guys are excited. You finally got a court. Like, look, it's an exciting time. I get it. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. To jump back into the Mets, I have one final thing I want to bring up, but James Dowling mentioned something that I don't think he was here for 2 weeks ago when you kind of did a deep dive on this. Yeah. Alvarez is 21. Other top catchers didn't get the call up till 23. I don't know if you have the list of some of those guys off the top of your head. James, I don't know if you missed that episode. I apologize if you were there, but it's a great point out of you, one that Ibby brought up thoroughly. And the names and where they were will surprise you.
A majority of the catchers at that time, by the age of 21, you're looking at the likes of JT Realmuto was like an A ball. You're looking at Sean Murphy, who's killing it for the Braves right now, who was in high A ball. You're looking at the Contreras brothers were an A ball. You're looking at MJ Melendez, who's struggling right now for the Royals, but big time bat. A ball. A lot of these guys, it takes a long time for a catcher, and a lot of times catchers get babied to an extent because it's a hard position. You're dealing with a lot of personalities. You're dealing with a lot of different pitches. You're dealing with a different type of approach. There's a lot going on for a catcher. So I understand the struggles of a 21-year-old at that spot. A 21-year-old outfielder thriving is one thing. A 21-year-old catcher thriving, you don't hear it that often. So it takes some time.
I totally agree. And look, we've been steadfast on this. If Narvaez doesn't get hurt, Alvarez is probably the third or fourth of the Mets' big prospects getting called up this season. I think obviously Beatty was going to be ahead of him. I think Vientos would be ahead of him. And I think you can make a case that Mauricio would have been ahead of him too, depending on what the Mets' needs were. And that brings me to our final point today, which is Ronny Mauricio finally getting reps at another position that is not shortstop. Ibby, I long thought, hey, give this guy an outfield glove, let him play left field. But I'm not mad at the machination. Look, I love Jeff McNeil. I really, really do. I love Jeff McNeil. I'm so happy they extended McNeil. But I will say on this is so funny. Shay just put that in the chat as we started this conversation. I love Jeff. I think Jeff is a phenomenal baseball player. I also think that Jeff should be the everyday second baseman under normal circumstances. But I think Jeff's value is that in the right lineup, he can play several positions. I think he's a plus defender at second. I think he's a plus defender in left. And I think he's a plus defender in right. And in the right lineup, he can hit second, third, fifth, 6th, 7th, 9th, depending on who you have. So I think Jeff's ability to slide around the field and slide around the lineup is going to make a Ronny Mauricio call-up in 2023 easier than it would have been otherwise. Because for Mauricio to learn a different position than shortstop to go out to the outfield, that's going to take a season probably. For him to learn second base and come up here and be the guy who plays second, backs up some short, gets a lot of at-bats doing that, Ibby, I think now we can say that we are looking at the Mets potentially fast-tracking Ronny Mauricio to the major leagues.
I do think it's a lot more likely that we see him in comparison to the thoughts that I've had on previous episodes where I said I thought that the guy playing shortstop was just them keeping him down low, let him kill it, let him pad those stats and basically use him as trade bait. But now it seems as though the kids could be viewed, all of them viewed as the reinforcements for this team and giving them an opportunity to try and thrive here. I was ecstatic when they finally moved him off of short to put him at second base. I, like you, always thought, based off of his size, based off of his movements, I would have thought it would have been the outfield. But second base, if he's okay, and from the reports that I've seen, whether it was from Joe DeMayo or others putting things out saying how, look, he fielded his position cleanly. There were no errors. He was fine. Couple up and down days at the plate. One day he killed it. One day he had a rough one. That's Ronny Mauricio. Look, the one thing that I've mentioned before on this show, not so much about Ronny, and I'm not trying to comp him to this player, but based off of the profile in terms of the strikeouts, right? Ronny Mauricio has always been said that he does not have a good eye, strikes out a lot, doesn't walk. Okay. We had a previous player on this team that struck out a lot, didn't walk a lot. Okay. He's doing terrible right now. All right. And that is one Javier Baez. I'm not comping him to Javier Baez. No. What I'm trying to do here is say what I thought Javier Baez was allowed to do when he was a Met that suited his profile. And that was, people always thought he would be a more complete player. People always thought he would have a better average. He wouldn't strike out as much. He would do all of these things. He had a great glove, blah, blah, blah. When he was in this lineup, he was expected to do one thing. Can you hit the ball over the fence? And he did, to the tone of, for the season, obviously, between the two spots. He had 30 homers on the year. Okay. So Mauricio, if he comes up for this team, based off what he's done to this point, he's going to be expected to provide some power. There's going to be some strikeouts along the way. You have to still be able to provide said power at the next level. You can't strike out every single at bat because you're not providing that power then. But if he comes up and he is able to provide, say, on the low end, 10 homers, depending on when he comes up, 10 home runs. We'll just go really low right now. If he provides 10 home runs, but he strikes out a good amount, at least you're seeing, hey, this guy's proving that he can provide power to an extent, again, based off of the timing, at this level. And that then shows what he can provide moving forward. So the biggest problem, though, with Mets fans, as we always bring it back to Mets fans, is are they going to be able, and I said this when they got Javi, I'll never forget that episode when we did it, will Mets fans be able to handle the ups and downs? Will Mets fans be able to handle the ups and downs of a Ronny Mauricio? That's the big question. Because the second he comes up and he has a 4 strikeout game, which is very possible, and I'm not trying to badmouth the guy, but that's kind of who he is.
That's his Achilles heel.
So if that happens, and if he has 15 strikeouts in his first 25 at bats, God, it's possible. I don't want it to happen, but the guy strikes out a lot. And there's a difference between, and we're seeing a Brett Beatty, there's a difference between major league pitching, AAA and AA pitching. There's a big difference. These guys know what they're doing. That's why they get paid the money they get paid. They know how to pick you apart. They have scouting reports, and they'll attack you, and they're going to go after your weaknesses. All right. Can you lay off that slider low and away on a 1-2 pitch? Like they're going to go after you in that sense. Can he provide what he needs to do in order to stay at this level? That's the biggest test. But the fact that they moved him off of second tells me, and I'm with you, we can see him at some point this year coming up here and providing for this team.
I agree. And, Carlos saying, guys, if Ronny can learn to play left field, it would be perfect. He has a cannon for an arm, would be solid for their outfield. Yeah, I agree long-term. And I like what the Mets said. I think it was Buck. I don't remember if it was Buck or Billy that said, they think he's a guy that can get 500 at-bats and play all over the field, a la Ben Zobrist. They said they think that he's, the kind of player that's athletic enough to play shortstop, second base, first base, left field, third base, and great. The Mets need a super sub like that. The Mets need that kind of player, I think on their roster. Plus, he gives you some quickness. He gives you a lot of things that they would like to have, another good addition to their team. Last one, I think Carlos brings up a good point. Should the lineup be Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Pete, Marte, Beatty, etc.? Your thoughts? Look, I've already made my points on McNeil very just prominent here in this episode. Ibby, I do think that the way Starling Marte is struggling, he has to stop hitting second right now. Now,
I would agree.
I love Starling Marte.
Love Starling.
I love Starling Marte hitting second behind Nimmo. I like Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Pete. I like that. But the way he's struggling right now, he needs to be lower. Jeff needs to be higher. Jeff is hitting better. He's hitting for a higher average. He makes better contact, and he's got that 470 something on base percentage that he's added. So there's no reason for him not to be hitting higher and Marte to be hitting lower right now for me.
At the moment, yeah, I think Marte's still a little messed up with the neck from that slide. I think he's just a little bit out of sorts. And it showed in his overall play over the last, call it 2.5 weeks. Hasn't been that great. But in terms of the lineup that Carlos put up there, I think for me personally, I would probably just swap Lindor and McNeil. I would have McNeil 2 and Lindor 3. That's my one caveat. But either way, I get the overall point, and the whole point is to just try and drop Marte out of that 2 spot and allow him to try and get himself back into sorts, if you will, to try and get back into a groove to work his way back up to that 2 spot. But yeah, I agree with that. I do think that Marte is a little bit off, and keeping Jeff higher in the lineup, I think, makes a lot more sense at the moment. Yes. Your mic's off.
Sorry about that. I would go either way. I don't even know if I did that. I might have hit a button. I would go either way. I don't have a preference. I like McNeil in the 2 and Lindor in the 3, but I also like Lindor in the 2 and McNeil in the 3. Like fine, either one of those. Your suggestion, I would be fine with. Carlos' suggestion, I would be fine with. And again, just to hammer it home, I would be fine with the lineup they're running out right now if Marte was hitting, and if Marte was hitting, and if McNeil had a more prominent spot, hitting 6th until a guy like Beatty or somebody with pop is ready. I saw what you saw. James Root saying they won't go lefty and lefty at the top. They won't. And I think it's smart. I think when you have a switch hitter like Lindor, who spent a lot of time in his career in the 2-hole, and you have a guy like McNeil, although who doesn't have the power, profiles is a very good third place hitter, kind of like a classic 1970s, 1980s third place hitter almost. Mm-hmm. So I think when you go with that, you can't go wrong. Any one of those ways works for me, honestly. That's just, and I saw something a minute ago, Ibby, and I want to go back to it because it has nothing to do with the Mets, but I find it wildly interesting because it's bad news if true. Chris Ferraro said, Robbie Ray done for the season?
What happened? I did see he was. Let's find out.
I didn't see, but I do. I think that's a big enough baseball story to end on and just kind of go full circle here on our Mets baseball conversation. Sometimes when you're in season, you got to talk about stuff like Fernando Tatis dancing to the steroid chants because it's kind of hilarious.
Robbie Ray out for the season with a flexor tendon surgery.
That sucks.
Yeah,
that sucks. Because that team is good.
They're a good team.
And he's a big part of that team, and I want to see that team make some noise in the West. That's a bummer for Robbie Ray. I like Robbie Ray, too. His pants are too tight, but other than that, I like Robbie Ray.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's totally a bummer for the M's and Robbie Ray. But that said, any final thoughts before we get out of here this week? It's been a weird, fun episode.
Yeah, it's a little different. I like it though when we get to go off topic a little bit and have some fun with the chat. trying to think if I got anything in particular. I don't think I do. No, I mean, I got nothing in particular other than just, again, guys, just try your best to. I know it's hard to say at the Mets fans. Try your best to stay relaxed. Enjoy the games. Take them for what they are. Don't live and die. Please don't live and die. I get that we all want to win every game, but try to have some fun with it. Let's try and be the better part. Let our show, let our people that join us in the chat that frequent us often, let us be the better part and mix with other people on Twitter and try to get Mets Twitter a little more uprising as opposed to being the shits that it can be after certain losses.
That's fair.
You know, it's just it's annoying. And like I've said before, I want to try and, you know, I want all of us to grow on Twitter to the best of our abilities and get better reach. But sometimes, like last night, I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this tonight. Like, there's no way I'm doing it. I don't want to. Because it's bad energy. You don't want it. So either way, have a great week, everyone. Have some fun. Let's go Mets. And that's it. That's all I got.
Baseball and BBQ, 1986 New York Met Ed Hearn getting a new kidney. That is good news. Great news for Ed Hearn and his family. And this was going to be my final thought. Shay saying new patch looks nice. The new patch is what the patch should have been the whole time. I don't care about advertisements on jerseys. You can put them there. I think they're better without it, but whatever. It's a necessary evil of the world that we live in. Make it look nice. And again, this is a really dumb one, Ibby. It's a small one, but it is a testament to Steve Cohen. It is a testament to Steve Cohen understanding the assignment of being a sports owner. It's so important to just say, hey, you know what? This doesn't work. And I'm going to change it. It's our first patch ever on a uniform. It's a landmark partnership. It's probably bringing the Mets a lot of money. You know what? Great. We're keeping it, but we're changing this little thing. Or like the same way that he was like, hey, you know what? We can have a Chick-fil-A sponsorship, but we're not having them on the fucking foul poles anymore.
Right.
Like, it's just
pole.
Little things. I love that concept that he could just turn around and make a change when he sees a change need to be made. The Wilpons would have dug in. They would have been obstinate. They probably would have changed the name of the Mets to the New York Presbyterian Hospitals so that they could get more money. They would have changed everybody's last name on the back to Presbyterian Hospital. And that would have been it. That would have been it. So I appreciate the fact that Steve Cohen is who he is. Keep on doing king shit, King. That's what I like to say. Anyway, we will see you guys next week in our regular time slot, 5:30 Eastern, which is 2:30 here on the West Coast for just, I guess, myself and Shay. Everybody else, I think, lives on the East Coast. Some people live in like Texas and stuff, Central Time Zone, all that thing. But anyway, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.